There are rare, luminous moments in life when the external world seems to fall silent and an internal compass spins wildly, pointing to a presence that feels both new and ancient. It is the moment when an ordinary encounter, a chance meeting, a familiar gaze, a silence shared, transforms into a profound, undeniable recognition. Suddenly, the heart possesses a knowledge the mind is incapable of articulating or rationalizing. This is not the random collision of two people. It is not merely superficial chemistry. This is the unmistakable call of something primordial, inevitable, and essential. When destiny articulates itself through the language of love, no personal plan, no logical barrier, and no opposing force in the cosmos can ultimately stand in its way. The magnetic unconscious draw between two individuals is a force that transcends the boundaries of reason, deliberate planning, and even surface-level personal preference. It originates from a dimension deeper than conscious thought, a profound psychological reservoir where the universal patterns of human experience, the collective unconscious, reside. This reservoir is replete with archetypes, timeless symbols, and ancient motifs that have subtly shaped and guided human emotions and interactions for millennia. When two souls are pulled toward each other with a sense of destiny, a mysterious familiarity, or an utter lack of logical explanation, the experience is not simply a product of personal attraction or transient emotion. It is a powerful manifestation of this underlying psychological structure that informs, shapes, and directs our deepest emotional lives. The Archetypal Blueprint, recognizing the beloved. At the core of this unconscious draw lies a dual recognition, a deep seeing of the essential self in the other person, but more importantly, a simultaneous recognition of a lost or unformed aspect of oneself. We are seldom consciously aware of the true qualities we seek in love. Instead, we are often moved by an image, a template of the beloved that has been alive within us long before the person was ever met. This internal image may have taken root through childhood dreams, resonant stories, cultural myths, or the influential figures of early life. Yet its true origin is deeper than any single biographical experience. It is part of an archetypal pattern, a universal inherited template that provides the soul with a profound and often spiritual sense of what the beloved must be. When a person who precisely fits this inner archetypal image appears, the resulting attraction is a magnetic pull that is simultaneously exhilarating, terrifying, and profoundly inexplicable. This phenomenon is not reducible to mere fantasy or simple psychological projection. Rather, it is the sophisticated mechanism of the psyche directing us toward the path of psychological wholeness. The unconscious mind does not merely conceal forgotten wounds or hidden desires, it also holds the sacred blueprint for personal evolution and psychological integration. When we feel an intense, soul-deep attraction to another person, it is often because something essential in them acts as a powerful activator for an aspect of ourselves that has been dormant, repressed, or underdeveloped. In them, we may vividly see our own potential for courage, our buried sensitivity, our abandoned playfulness, or even the shadows of our own unacknowledged darkness. This recognition stirs us at a symbolic level. The connection is not solely about the person standing before us, it is about what they represent within the architecture of our inner world. Love, in this context, becomes a profound mirror, and when guided by the unconscious, it is a mirror polished by ancient myth, primal instinct, and spiritual memory. We may find ourselves drawn irrevocably to someone who fundamentally challenges the structure of our ego, who utterly disrupts our carefully laid plans, or who makes no pragmatic sense within the rational context of our established life. Yet the persistent pull remains, haunting, illogical, and impossible to disregard. This is the sheer power of the unconscious draw. It bypasses the gatekeeper of the rational mind and moves directly to the soul's core. It does not ask for permission or consent, it simply arrives, often disguised as a simple chance encounter or a quirky coincidence. This is why such love is frequently described as destined. It manifests not as the outcome of a calculated choice, but as an unfolding reality, pre-written in the silent script of our deepest being. While not all unconscious attractions lead to healthy, sustainable relationships, when the pull is mutual and rooted in a shared symbolic resonance, it becomes the most powerful catalyst for profound transformation. The two individuals become co-travelers on a joint journey, one that leads not only toward each other, but inexorably toward the truth of themselves. They awaken in one another the forgotten languages of the heart, languages spoken long ago, in dreams, in silence, and in the symbols passed down through time. This principle is not romantic idealism, it is a profound psychological truth. We do not fall in love randomly. We are unconsciously guided to those who carry within them pieces of our inner world, pieces we have yet to fully understand, reclaim, or consciously embrace. Therefore, true destined love begins with this mysterious, powerful draw, one that originates not in the calculating mind, but in the timeless, mysterious depths of the soul. Synchronicity, the language of the universe. The concept of synchronicity, as articulated by C.G. Jung, speaks to the mysterious, meaningful alignment of internal, subjective experiences with external, objective events. These are occurrences connected not by a direct chain of cause and effect, but by their shared significance or meaning. In the context of true love and destiny, synchronicity acts as a guiding force, leading individuals toward one another through a sequence of seemingly unrelated or highly improbable events that, when viewed in retrospect, form an undeniable, coherent pattern. These are the moments when a person manifests in your life precisely when you are internally ready for them, or when paths cross under poetic, serendipitous, or strangely logical circumstances that utterly defy mere probability. While on the surface these experiences may be dismissed as chance or coincidence, they resonate deeply within the individual, as if the entire universe were responding to a silent, unspoken longing of the heart. This phenomenon of meaningful coincidence occurs when the inner world, a nascent thought, a powerful feeling, a quiet longing, aligns with an event in the external world in a manner that carries deep personal significance. When two individuals are destined to meet, their convergence is often a product of a chain of such synchronicities, moments that whisper the truth rather than shout it, moments that feel carefully orchestrated by a force greater than individual will. It might take the form of a vivid dream that prefigures a face you've never seen, a book falling open to a page that perfectly describes your current internal dilemma, a particular song playing at a pivotal moment, or a sudden unexpected encounter that feels both completely surprising and profoundly right. These are not mere coincidences, they are signals, signs indicating that something deeply meaningful is taking shape in the hidden fabric of your life. The appearance of synchronicity suggests that the human psyche is not an isolated entity, but is intimately and mystically linked with the world around it. It suggests that the heart's inner truths, even those that have not yet been consciously acknowledged, are being mirrored by the objective reality of the outside world. This connection creates the powerful sense that destiny is not a rigid, fixed path, but a living, dynamic dialogue between the self and the cosmos. When love is meant to be, the universe begins to speak in these symbolic timings and conjunctions, guiding the individuals not through force or command, but through gentle invitation. The signs do not demand, they evoke deep attention. They nudge the soul awake, encouraging it to follow the thread of meaning rather than the well-worn path of logic. Such experiences are deeply personal and often difficult to articulate or explain to others. They are felt rather than empirically proven. This very quality is what makes them feel sacred. Two people drawn together by a series of unrelated events that only make sense as part of a larger whole often feel as though they have been guided by invisible hands. These moments violate the neat, rational narratives we tell ourselves. They belong to the symbolic order, a realm where linear time can bend, personal boundaries blur, and the unseen forces of fate move just beneath the surface of everyday life. True love, when guided by synchronicity, often feels like a homecoming, a return to a place you have never physically been, yet have always intrinsically known. The familiar ache of recognition arises not merely because you have met in this life, but because your souls have been dancing around the possibility of this meeting long before. The synchronicities build a temporary but strong bridge between those inner, timeless memories and the present reality, affirming that what is unfolding is not random, but profoundly necessary. It is this powerful sense of meaningful inevitability that gives destiny its audible voice and true love its enduring echo. The presence of synchronicity confirms that love is not only about conscious choice or sustained effort, but about the spiritual act of listening to the subtle language of the universe, a language composed of symbols, perfect timings, and the beautiful, subtle magic of things quietly falling into their appointed place. Individuation. Love as a crucible for wholeness. Individuation is the psychological process through which an individual strives to become whole, integrating the many fragmented, often contradictory aspects of the self into a unified conscious being. In the context of true, destined love, individuation plays a fundamental and often challenging role, because the kind of love that is aligned with destiny does not merely connect two people, it awakens each of them to the truth of who they are fundamentally meant to be. We frequently imagine love as an entirely external event, something that transpires exclusively between another person and us. Yet the deepest, most transformative love begins as a rigorous internal journey. It is often the very call of love that serves as the initiation to the path of self-discovery, the necessary confrontation with the unconscious shadow, and ultimately the process of individuation. When destiny calls through love, it is not offering an escape or simple comfort. It is offering profound, demanding growth. The person to whom we are inexplicably drawn is often the very individual who unconsciously embodies and represents aspects of ourselves we have not yet fully accepted, developed, or even discovered. This individual acts as an uncompromising mirror, sometimes gentle, often confronting, reflecting back the unlived potential, the hidden strengths, or the profound dreams we have long abandoned. True love, when it is real, demands that we face these inner truths, not for the purpose of impressing or possessing the other person, but for the imperative task of becoming more authentic and whole ourselves. The journey toward this authenticity often commences with a powerful, persistent sense of longing or spiritual incompleteness. It is this subtle inner voice, this deep yearning for something more, that stirs the soul into motion, compelling it to seek. And that seeking often leads not to external accomplishment, but directly to a person who activates the hidden, buried parts of our psyche. They may enter our lives with startling suddenness, under unusual circumstances, or after an extended period of solitude or self-work. Their presence stirs something ancient within, something that feels both terrifyingly vast and utterly irresistible. This is not mere infatuation. This is the awakening of the authentic self through the profound recognition of the other. In the psychological process of individuation, one must confront not only the conscious ideals one holds, but also the formidable unconscious shadow, the repressed fears, unacknowledged desires, and emotional wounds that have secretly shaped the emotional world. A destined love often accelerates this confrontation exponentially. The relationship becomes a crucible for transformation, a space where there is intense passion, but also intense challenge, where there is overwhelming joy, but also total exposure. It is impossible to hide the truth of one's soul from a person brought to you by destiny. And when two individuals are brought together in this way, they do not complete each other in a cliched sense. Rather, they compel each other to become intrinsically whole. This challenging dynamic often explains why destined love is rarely smooth, easy, or predictable. It stirs the depths of the unconscious, and in doing so, it brings to the surface everything that has been meticulously buried: traumas, insecurities, long-held illusions. Yet within this very struggle lies the true, necessary path toward inner integration. One begins to realize that the relationship is not merely a romantic experience, but a spiritual initiation. The other person is not simply a partner, they are a profound catalytic force. Their love is the intense fire that melts away all false identities and pretenses. Their presence creates the necessary silence in which your truest, most authentic self finally begins to speak. When love and the individuation process are intertwined, the resulting relationship is fundamentally sacred. It is no longer about possession, control, or striving for unattainable perfection. It becomes intensely focused on becoming. You are not trying to cling to the other person, but to consciously hold space for the unique, destined becoming of each soul involved. Therefore, destined love is not a final destination or a happily ever after. It is a portal. It leads you profoundly inward as much as it leads you forward. It is the constant, powerful reminder that love is not the end of the journey, but the insistent, beautiful call to truly begin. Anima and Animus, the dance of internal opposites. Within the hidden, complex architecture of the human psyche exists a fundamental dual structure that is rarely conscious but profoundly influential: the anima and the animus. These are the inner, unconscious images of the opposite gender that reside within every individual, regardless of their own gender identity. The anima represents the inner feminine principle in a man, the qualities of receptivity, intuition, and emotional relatedness. The animus represents the inner masculine principle in a woman, the qualities of assertiveness, clarity, and objective thought. Crucially, these inner figures are not constructed solely from personal life experiences or external relationships. They are archetypal in nature, inherited psychological patterns that form an integral part of the collective unconscious. When a person encounters someone in the external world who powerfully resonates and embodies this inner image, the result is often an intense magnetic attraction, a deep, unsettling sense of familiarity, or the feeling commonly romanticized as love at first sight. This visceral reaction, however, is far more than mere romantic sentimentality. It is a profound psychological event where the deepest unconscious is stirred and something ancient within the soul is suddenly awakened. The anima and animus are not static. They are dynamic images that evolve through personal growth, conscious relationship work, and spiritual introspection. When these archetypes are underdeveloped or unexamined, they lead to projection, the unconscious tendency to attribute one's own inner qualities, needs, or ideals to another person without conscious awareness. This explains why individuals sometimes fall in love with a highly idealized, illusory version of someone, rather than with the person themselves. However, when these archetypes are more integrated and conscious, they cease to be sources of distortion and instead function as bridges. They enable a genuine, deep connection not only with another person, but crucially with one's own inner world and opposite principle. When a relationship emerges from this deeper, integrated place, it is characterized not by fleeting passion, but by a powerful, enduring sense of destiny, profound meaning, and continuous transformation. When two individuals are drawn together under the influence of these conscious inner archetypes, the attraction feels fated. It is not merely physical or emotional, but deeply symbolic. Each sees in the other something that resonates with a profound internal truth. The woman may consciously or unconsciously see in the man the strength, clarity, and vision that her integrated animus embodies. The man may recognize in the woman the grace, intuition, and emotional depth that represent the essence of his integrated anima. When these projections are brought to consciousness and actively worked through, they facilitate deep psychological union. The relationship itself becomes a sacred vessel, not only for emotional love, but for the essential integration of these internal opposites. This process is inherently challenging. If we fall in love only with the image of our anima or animus in the other person, we may unjustly expect them to fulfill impossible roles or embody qualities that are not authentically theirs. This is why some relationships that begin with ecstatic intensity collapse under the oppressive weight of unmet, unconscious expectations. But in a destined connection, the presence of the anima and animus does not ultimately lead to illusion, it leads to profound awakening. The other person challenges us to meet ourselves with greater honesty. Through the process of love, we begin to see the projections we have carried consciously, and in doing so, we begin the vital task of reclaiming those aspects for ourselves. True love arising from this conscious anima-animus resonance is not about two halves becoming whole through each other. It is about each person accessing and integrating the lost or opposite half within themselves. The relationship thus becomes an alchemical process, a sacred, intense exchange in which both people are continuously refined, deepened, and made more completely whole. It is not an escape from the self, but an essential return to it, guided by the profound mystery of recognition and the quiet certainty that something deeply meaningful has been stirred below the surface of ordinary life. The silent call of the self, the blueprint of fate. Within the deepest recesses of the human psyche, every person carries an intricate, unique blueprint, a psychological destiny shaped not merely by external circumstances, but by the silent, relentless call of the self. This self is not the limited ego, nor the superficial persona we present in daily life. It is the deeper central core of the individual, the totality of the conscious and unconscious, the unchanging center that tirelessly seeks wholeness, profound meaning, and the full realization of its inner truth. When love enters the life through the doorway of this inner calling, it does not arrive as mere fleeting desire or a reasoned choice. It comes as the inevitable unfolding of something that was eternally meant to be. The self actively orchestrates the encounters, subtly nudges the individual through dreams, symbols, and intuition, and arranges the internal readiness that is the prerequisite for a destined relationship. Love in this form is not simply something that happens to you. It is something that has been profoundly summoned by your own deep core. There is a distinct moment in many lives when the heart begins to crave not just simple affection, but perfect alignment. This longing is not for a superficial connection, but for a bond that feels resonant, soul-deep, and transformative. At such pivotal moments, the self begins to stir. It is as if an ancient part of the psyche awakens and begins the slow, deliberate process of calling home all the lost, fragmented aspects of being. And sometimes, one of those essential fragments walks into our lives in the physical form of another human being. The resulting sense of recognition can be utterly overwhelming, deeply irrational, and profoundly difficult to articulate. It is not predicated on shared hobbies or aligned life goals, but on the visceral feeling that this person has emerged from the deepest waters of your own soul. That powerful recognition is not fantasy, it is the resonant voice of the self echoing in the innermost chambers of the heart. This orchestration of fate does not follow the dictates of logic, and it does not adhere to the ego's preferred timeline. Often, it leads two people together under highly unusual or inconvenient circumstances. One may be emotionally unavailable, or the external situation may be impossible. The other may be resistant, deeply frightened, or utterly unprepared. Yet the persistent pull remains. This is because the self does not prioritize personal comfort. It prioritizes profound growth. It seeks to awaken the dormant, difficult truths that only a love of this magnitude can reach. Through the powerful presence of the other, we are inexorably called into a greater awareness of our own essence, our life's purpose, and the parts of us we have long denied. The person becomes not just a partner, but a silent guide, sometimes knowingly, sometimes not, leading us deeper into our own mystery. The self, in its infinite wisdom, does not reveal the whole story at once. It speaks through symbolic dreams, powerful intuitions, and subtle guidance. Sometimes the destined connection is foreshadowed in childhood imaginings, reappears in potent dreams long before the physical meeting, or arrives wrapped in pain to strip away the false self and make space for the real. It may not feel like romance at first. It may feel like profound disruption. But within the initial chaos is the hidden blueprint, the silent, profound architecture that has always been waiting to be activated. And when the connection finally begins to unfold, it feels like entering a grand, epic story that has been written across lifetimes, waiting for the precise right moment to be read aloud. This is why destined love is almost always accompanied by a powerful sense of inevitability. Even when actively resisted, even when temporarily delayed, there is a powerful, undeniable undercurrent that continues to pull. The external world may throw up myriad obstacles, but the inner world, led by the self, continues to align, prepare, and guide. The lovers may separate, wander, or grow apart for years, yet the profound call remains, like a quiet song that never truly stops playing. It is not a force that compels and coerces, but a force that invites, steadily, patiently, and with the full, non-negotiable weight of inner truth behind it. And when the internal time is right, that quiet invitation becomes a clear doorway into the kind of love that transforms not just the heart, but the entire fabric of one's being. Resistance and surrender, the threshold of true union. When destiny draws two souls together through true love, the experience is rarely gentle, straightforward, or easy. In fact, such unions frequently arrive wrapped in profound complexity, intense resistance, and inner conflict. This is because destined love emerges to offer mere comfort or validation. It comes to awaken the soul. And awakening, by its very nature, is a powerful disruption. The heart that encounters such love is seldom fully prepared to receive it. There may be old, unhealed wounds, deeply ingrained fears of vulnerability, unresolved trauma, or rigid, inherited beliefs about what love is supposed to be. As a result, resistance arises, both conscious and unconscious, forming profound inner barriers that complicate the unfolding of a connection that, on the soul level, has already been chosen and accepted. This resistance is not a sign that the love is flawed or wrong. Quite the opposite. It often serves as a powerful indicator of the very depth of its truth. The ego, the part of the self that demands control, resists what it cannot manage or predict. And destiny, particularly in the realm of deep love, is not something that can be scheduled, managed, or predicted. It refuses to fit into pre-existing plans or adhere to logic. It defies timelines and established expectations. The fated person may arrive too early or too late, or under circumstances that seem practically impossible. They may challenge every superficial thing the ego thought it wanted. And yet, something deeper within the individual knows this is important, this is different, this is real. And because it is real, it instantly activates all the unconscious defenses built over a lifetime to protect the heart from being seen too clearly or feeling too deeply. The experience of inner conflict is a sacred, necessary signal in such moments. It is not something to be solved or discarded immediately, but something to be explored with profound care and honesty. It illuminates the layers of the psyche that are being asked to fundamentally transform. The part of the self that craves safety and predictability may clash violently with the part that longs for transcendence and meaning. The part that fears intimacy may rise against the insistent call to total vulnerability. All of these powerful, fragmented voices begin to speak at once, creating confusion, agonizing doubt, and sometimes the overwhelming temptation to run and hide. But it is within that very chaos that the direct path toward integration lies. The resistance is not the ultimate enemy, it is the necessary threshold. When two souls are meant for one another, their meeting triggers not only love, but intense, necessary growth. And true growth rarely happens in a state of comfortable silence. It happens through friction, through reckoning, through the deliberate unraveling of old, limiting narratives. The relationship becomes an intense arena in which both individuals are compelled to confront their shadow, the hidden, repressed parts of themselves they have previously refused to acknowledge. In this exposed space, they are not simply lovers, they are powerful mirrors, reflecting everything that must be healed, mourned, and integrated for true, authentic union to occur. This process is undeniably painful, but it is also profoundly beautiful in its raw honesty. It is what permits love to evolve from a fleeting emotion into a sacred, transformative power. What is most extraordinary about destined love is that even in the face of intense resistance, even when both parties struggle to fully surrender to the connection, the bond remains. It does not simply vanish with the passing of time or the imposition of physical distance. It lingers like a haunting melody, a song half remembered, or a vivid dream that follows you into your waking life. The bond may go quiet, it may pause for years, but the pull never entirely fades because something deeper has been activated, something the rational mind cannot extinguish or undo. And often, it is precisely through this tension, this quiet war between the self that desperately clings to the past and the self that is powerfully called toward the future, that the true, enduring strength of love finally reveals itself. It is not a test of perfection or ease, it is a test of presence, the deep, radical willingness to stay in the fire of transformation long enough to be fundamentally changed by it. And when that change finally takes place, when the ego's resistance gives way to the soul's surrender, something truly extraordinary happens. The love that once felt terrifyingly overwhelming becomes deeply grounding. The fear that once threatened to destroy the connection becomes the secure doorway into a deeper, more profound intimacy. And the destiny that once felt too vast and abstract to grasp becomes the very stable ground upon which two conscious souls stand, not as victims of fate, but as willing, fully conscious participants in it. True love, when summoned by destiny, is not a fairy tale. It is an arduous, magnificent journey of spiritual awakening. It arrives not merely to provide comfort, but to fundamentally transform, not to fulfill shallow fantasies, but to return us to the unwavering truth of who we are. It stirs the deep unconscious, brings the shadow parts to light, and calls forth the deepest, most authentic parts of the self into being. Such love may deeply challenge us, it may even shatter us into pieces, but it always inevitably brings us closer to a state of wholeness. And though it may eternally defy logic, timing, and external circumstance, it obeys something far greater, the quiet, insistent rhythm of the soul's grand, eternal unfolding. In the end, when destiny calls, nothing, not fear, not time, not even our own resistance can stop true love from ultimately finding its sacred way.